Hey everybody, welcome. This is a special episode of WP Product Talk where Zack and I are in the same room at the same time, which is weird for us. And we're here at PressConf this week in Tempe, Arizona, enjoying the conference here. And they were kind enough to let us use this room for this special episode where we have two other Matts as well. We have some rules. We're going to talk about the Matt situation here. But last week, you might have seen online an announcement that ironically happened on April 1st, but it was true, that Cloudflare has launched a new product called EmDash. And they launched it saying that they are the spiritual successor of WordPress. And so we were like, I wonder if you all would like to talk about that with some WordPress folks. And they were kind enough to say yes. So Matt Kane, thank you so much for being here. We are privileged to be able to talk with you about it, and I'd love if you can introduce yourselves a little bit. The Matt rules. We talked about this earlier. So everybody can call me Cromwell. People call me Cromwell all the time. We decided Matt Taylor is going to be TK. Is that right?
Yes.
And then Matt Kane gets the privilege of being called Matt. So
I'm honored.
But TK, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, and what brings you here today.
For sure. Thanks for inviting on the podcast. Hi everyone, I'm TK. I am a senior product manager at Cloudflare. I joined Cloudflare late last year and work here in London on the authoring and testing team, probably better known as like the Wrangler team. So interface for a lot of developers into the Cloudflare developer platform. And EmDash is something that I was kind of thrown into through basically my past experience. So last kind of decade of my life, I have been working in publishing and media. For the last 4 years, I was a product manager at the Financial Times working on content management systems. The FT has actually built their own very bespoke system. And prior to that, I was at News Corp, who are a large WordPress customer and have been migrating a lot of content to WordPress over many years. Joined Matt on his quest in kind of February this year and have been enjoying the ride.
Excellent. And Matt Kane.
Hi. I'm Matt Kane. I'm also in England. I'm a senior principal engineer at Cloudflare. I joined around the same time as TK did towards the end of last year. I am also, I think more relevantly here, I am one of the core team of the Astro web framework. So some of your listeners and viewers may know of Astro, but I've been a maintainer of Astro for about 2 years now. And before joining Astro, I was the lead on the framework.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much for being here. And we wanted to jump in with some questions. I think, Zack, you got the first question.
Yeah, so can you tell us more about how you ended up building a CMS at Cloudflare? We'd love to hear the story of how that actually came about.
Well, I will take this one because it was one of these things that came to me. I actually only found out the full details of how this happened only yesterday, in fact. So the previous story that I told was that I was nerd sniped by Dane, our CTO. Now, nerd snipe as in somebody threw me a challenging and very fun problem. Now, what he told me yesterday is that this was actually from another Matthew Prince, our CEO, that he just passed on to me. So he basically said to me, what can we do can we build the next WordPress? Now, this is something that is this is something that particularly Astro maintainers have been thinking about a lot. And it's one that I personally have been thinking about quite a lot for a few years. And so it was obviously a challenge that I could not refuse. I mean, quite apart from the fact that it came from the CEO. But it was one that I had also already spent quite a lot of time thinking about. So this was the kind of the way this came in. And as I understand it, this is something that people at Cloudflare have been thinking about for a while, but it had been too daunting a task until the advent of agents, the AI that were able to help us on this. So that was effectively my task, was that I was going to create what I felt was the kind of what WordPress would be if it was created in 2026, and I was going to do it with the help of an unlimited token budget, and this was basically what I was set out to do, and that's what I've been doing for the past 2 months.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll say I tested out Astro quite a bit last year, and I immediately was like, how can I tack a CMS onto this? And
what everyone says. It's what everyone says.
Yeah, I mean, it works great, and it works great with Cursor out of the box, and it was really good. But I tried out Storyblock. That seemed to be highly suggested, and also tested out Sanity. And they take a very unique and different approach to CMSs. But it seems like EmDash is a lot more WordPress-esque. Was that on purpose?
100%. We built this very much with the WordPress at the front of our mind. We weren't trying to port WordPress or trying to build an exact copy of WordPress, but we were wanting to build something that would be familiar to WordPress developers and WordPress users. And we did that by matching as much as we could the concepts from WordPress. So this is why we call it a spiritual successor. This is not designed to be a one-for-one match, but it is supposed to be bringing the parts that you love from WordPress into a modern CMS. And I think that's kind of where we've gone, is we've looked at every decision, every stage of every decision we made. We've looked at, how did WordPress do that? Is this something that people like about how WordPress did it? If yes, we will probably take it on. If not, we'll think about why people don't like it and think about the other ways that we might be able to do that instead.
So what do you say? It's more of a familiar successor than a spiritual? I think the word spiritual has the open source community and the WordPress community has been trying to parse what is meant by that. So your goal was to make it familiar for people who were migrating from WordPress to EmDash, not so much to a bigger question of the nature of WordPress itself, just like the interface and the concepts and the structure of EmDash would be something that you could transfer the knowledge of how to use.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of it, is that we know there's a lot of people that are very familiar with the WordPress interface, posts, pages, the way it kind of fundamentally ties together. We've been inspired by the role system in WordPress, and that is identical, But at the same time, I think there's something that WordPress was to a lot of developers in the kind of early days of its growth, where it was the kind of stumbling block that you would run through and FTPing it onto a server, etc., right, to learn programming and play around with databases and content management, because that was the kind of de facto standard. And I think as you have an entirely new generation of people kind of entering the internet and building things on the internet, especially with the advent of agents, and that was obviously a huge part of EmDash that I'm sure we can talk about. I don't think WordPress is really the tool of choice for those kinds of users, and often it's things like Astro that are promoted as, oh, build a site with Astro. But then where is that kind of WordPressy element that enables you to pull together some content, use a database, make some of the bits that you don't really want to spend loads of tokens on, or you don't really want to be hacking around in the HTML or Markdown files to do, much easier. And I think that was a key component of what you're building here. Is it's this really extensible system that sits on top of a lot of very modern technology to do the thing that WordPress would do, but is actually not very well suited for at this point in time.
Yeah, interesting. I think one thing that stood out with what Zack was leaning on a little bit, the idea of the spiritual successor, was that one of the things that's really important to the WordPress ecosystem is the way WordPress allows you to own your own content, and for that content to be portable. And it kind of feels different with EmDash, since it seems to be at the moment very Cloudflare pages specific. Is that also intentional, and is there a plan to allow EmDash to be installed in any host or anything like that?
To be clear, the EmDash is able to be installed anywhere that Astro can be installed, which is most places. It is by default a pure Node.js app. You can run it as a node, and people, we've got official stuff already in there talking about how to deploy it to Railway. And it works on, people have deployed it to Vercel and to Netlify. We built it with Cloudflare in mind because we work at Cloudflare. But at the same time, I have been working in open source for a very long time. I've been building web frameworks for over about 6 years now. So before Astro, I was working on Gatsby, if people may remember that. And I am very much, I'm very, very keen to make sure that this works everywhere, because that's one of the great beauties of WordPress, is that you can stick it on a $5 VPS somewhere and it will work. But the idea here is that the thing that we were super, super keen that this was going to be able to do is run in a serverless environment. So, it should be able to run in an AWS Lambda. It should be able to run on Netlify functions or Vercel or Cloudflare workers. And this was the idea, is we wanted this to be as portable as possible. Now, there are features in there which only work on WordPress, only work on Cloudflare. But this is not an inherent thing on them. This is not something that we have deliberately done. This is because they are using things that are only available on the Cloudflare platform. I'm going to keep making that mistake. But we are, our users, the community that suddenly sprung up in the last week are already, tackling those problems. And we are very, very happy that they are doing this, because, to make this clear, to make this as clear as we can, we want everyone to be able to run this everywhere. We are not using this as a thing to try and lock people into Cloudflare, because no CMS is going to succeed if that's what they're doing. Nobody is going to want to deploy something that only runs on Cloudflare. We want people to deploy it to Cloudflare because we think Cloudflare is a fantastic platform and provides lots of things out of the box that other platforms don't provide. But at the same time, if you want to run this on your $5 VPS, you can. You can deploy it as a Node.js app, and it will work on your same VPS that you're running PHP on. Or you can put it in a Docker image or whatever. And this is very much what we want to make clear. And the initial talk has been all about Cloudflare because it is a Cloudflare project. It has been built by Cloudflare, but we don't want that to be where it goes. So this is why we've created it in a separate GitHub organization. We've got a separate Discord community, because we want to be able to take this further. So it started as a Cloudflare project and it runs particularly well on Cloudflare, but we want it to go beyond Cloudflare and we want it to be accessible to everybody.
So one of the questions, is about plugin sandboxing. That's one of the main features that EmDash launched with, is saying that is one of the problems with WordPress, is that plugins have the ability to bring down a site, or they have too much scope of in terms of what they can do on the website. So are there plans to make that non-exclusive to Cloudflare?
There are not just plans, there are people working on it at the moment. This is something that we knew would happen straight away. It was one thing that I would have implemented it at launch if I could have done it without huge amounts of work. This has been a big thing to work on. I did implement as much on Node that I could easily. I was hoping that people could jump into it. I've spoken to some of the people on work at Cloudflare who are Node.js maintainers who have got deep knowledge in there, and there are people in our Discord community now who are tackling this from several different angles. They've got thoughts about different ways that this could be run. The thing is, the dynamic workers that we are using for this from Cloudflare are just particularly well suited for it. they weren't created for this. They were created mainly to be able to run AI generated code in a secure sandbox. But while I was, one of the first things I was thinking about when I was thinking, how am I going to design this as a product and a platform, is how are plugins going to work? Because, we all know that plugins are what makes WordPress. That is the thing that defines WordPress and what makes it such a huge success. So the big thing that I had to think is, how are we going to make plugins work well on this? Because, we know also that they are WordPress's greatest failing in terms of security, in terms of the many issues that come from it. So I wanted to think about a way that we could do this better, and I immediately just suddenly thought, wait a second, we've got this product that would be absolutely perfect for it. And when I implemented it, I made sure that it worked without it, so you can run it without the sandboxing. But I wanted it to be possible to use this as a thing that was going to be secure and sandboxed. So I want everybody to be able to run it unsandboxed, because apart from anything, it just makes it a lot easier to be able to have these plugin marketplaces and things like that. But as it stands, it's Cloudflare only for there. But look, from the speed of development that's going on in the repo at the moment, I imagine that there will be something next week that's going to be working that's going to run on Node. So watch this space.
It has been really amazing to see so much activity on that repo, on several of the repos overnight almost. TK, you were going to chime in a minute ago.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Matt's point that dynamic workers is an awesome primitive, and I think the way that Cloudflare's kind of DX through bindings in your worker makes all of that stuff really accessible is really kind of like our big selling point. And of course, like how that works with EmDash is really like sensible and unique as well. But this is not like a unique thing that Cloudflare will only be able to do in the future. I'm sure there are lots of companies that are working on the same kind of thing, because as Matt says, the kind of future of this dynamic workers proposition is really not EmDash at all, and plugins at all. It is all baked into how we need somewhere that is secure and isolated to run AI generated code. And lots and lots and lots of places have that same problem. So I think the problem space, as Matt says, it's being worked on, and there'll be other solutions that come out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, related to that, I think you all narrowed in on the fact that yes, the plugin ecosystem in WordPress is what makes WordPress successful, but it also is the biggest vector from a security perspective, for sure. But at the same time, it's hard to imagine having the ability to customize your website if a plugin was restricted from interacting with the database or things like that. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I'm having a hard time. Like, one plugin I install on every single WordPress website is a user role editor. It basically lets me customize my users to have different capabilities and roles and things like that. I'm not sure something like that would be possible on EmDash, for example, because of the sandbox nature. Can you speak a little bit to that, and what do you lose when with this approach, essentially?
So I think probably the best analog to think of for the way that the plugins work here are mobile apps. So the point that we've done with these plugins is we still give them capabilities, but those capabilities are limited and granular, and they are defined at install time. So if you are installing something that is calling a webhook when you are publishing something, then you know that it does want to be able to access anywhere on the internet, so that it's able to hit an arbitrary endpoint. But if you are doing something that is supposed to be adding a banner into your page, it shouldn't be something that is able to access the internet independently. Why should it be doing that? And equally, it shouldn't be able to access your database, and it shouldn't be able to access your emails. But if you are installing a plugin that is an email provider, then you want it to be able to have access to emails, but probably doesn't need access to user accounts, for example. But the idea here is that these may have lots of capabilities, but they are granular and they can be granted where they are needed. And I think this is the point, is that if the most of the issues that you get with plugins are about them grabbing much more much more capabilities than they should have. And the problem with the WordPress is that there's no way of limiting that. As soon as any plugin that you install, your little sale banner can go in there and exfiltrate your entire user database and can pull out your products and everything. Whereas with EmDash, you know what you're getting when you install it, and it will have very specified capabilities that it's able to do, and if it's contacting the internet, you can have it that it's limited to specific hosts. And we've launched with a particular set of capabilities and APIs that they have, but at the moment there are dozens of people already in the EmDash Discord that are planning their plugins that they're working on, but also bringing up things about which hooks are missing and which capabilities are missing and which ones that they want to add. So we are at a very, very early stage here. It is literally 1 week since we launched this thing, but we are able to add these things, and every piece that we've added, we've thought really carefully about how we can do this in a secure way. So for example, we do allow them to generate user interface in the admin panel. Now that could in theory be a risky thing to do, because if you're generating UI, you might be able to use it to access user data. So we've used a language that is similar to Slack's block kit that allows you to define user interface in a way that is secure. And then we've also provided APIs for injecting meta tags into the head and tags into the footer, but the things you can inject are limited, so they are very specific. So you can't, you're not able to, if you've granted something that you want to be able to inject analytics, it's not going to be able to inject other things that are not supposed to be in there. So this is the point about it. It's not about making it so that these are these are plugins that can't do anything. It's about making sure that they're plugins that do the thing that they're supposed to be doing, and not more than that.
I also think there's a completely different angle. Sorry, Cromwell, to just jump on your point. It's like, if you're installing a plugin on every site that you encounter, I think some of the things that we've tried out with EmDash is thinking, well, everyone installs like these SEO plugins, everyone installs a role plugin, let's say, right? Maybe some of these things in WordPress's time were just not considered as part of core development, because these plugins exist and this ecosystem exists, and we want to support that plugin ecosystem. But should those things really be plugins? The ability to say what an editor has access to do, or a subscriber has access to do, or whatever, right? These feel like capabilities that should just generally exist. So I do think there's an opportunity in EmDash to rethink the kinds of things that typically might have been a plugin and say, should that be core? Like, we've got rid effectively of a lot of what advanced custom fields did for WordPress by just allowing you to define different content types and set the properties that exist for those content types. It seems odd to me that WordPress has not addressed these things for the many years it's been alive. And I think it is a really good opportunity to rethink.
I think TK froze up there.
We lost TK. I was gonna add a thing to there that was quite a nice detail on that, because as TK was hinting about there, we have a lot of the SEO things built in. I merged a PR into our repo yesterday that improved the way that the OG images were injected for in the SEO fields. That PR was authored by Yoast, the creator of Yoast. So he's, this is the kind of, his entire plugin was based on the fact that this was effectively something that was missing from there. But he has also created a plugin that adds the extra bits of SEO that you don't necessarily need everywhere. And I think that's kind of the approach that we want to take to this, is think about exactly which bits do basically every single site need, and then put those in the core, but still leave things in plugins that are not going to be needed by every single person.
So one question that brings up is governance and how EmDash will be managed moving forward. Can you talk about how you see that happening?
I think Matt can probably talk a bit to it because, he's done a lot more in open source previously. But I would also just point to we're 1 week in where you saw us scramble.
Have you talked about the future of EmDash from that regard, since that is one of the questions regarding WordPress community?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be lying if this wasn't something that was, quite high on my mind at the moment. As TK said, I do have, and as I hinted before, I've got quite a lot of experience in open source maintenance for particularly for large projects. This has obviously been built out as a project from Cloudflare, but it's always been something where we have wanted it to be something that would be like a community thing. So this is why we have not launched it as, it's not on github.com/Cloudflare, it's github.com/m-cms. Now, that side of the governance is one thing. There is the whole thing of an open source project and the governance and who roles are and all that kind of thing. At the moment, that is me going, oh my God, I have got like 100 PRs open and I've merged 20 today and there's another 30 that have opened. Who am I going to, bring on board to do that? That at the moment is, to be determined. But I think there is also the technical side of it as well. So, for example, there is one of the ways that the governance is obviously an issue with WordPress is the plugin store. That is a key part.
Yeah.
What we want to do is do a distributed plugin store, and there's some really, really interesting conversations going on in Discord and GitHub at the moment about how that could be architected. And we've been looking at the FAIR proposal, which was one of the things that was proposed for WordPress plugins. There's some interesting things in there, but one of the other things we've done is that we've published the plugin marketplace is in the monorepo, and it's open source and anyone can use it and host their own. But I'm still not happy with it at the moment, because what I want is for everybody to be able to publish all of them and then to all be federated together. And I think that's where I see that one going.
That's interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that specifically, because we only have a few more minutes left. But anything you can say about the plugin marketplace, the theme marketplace? TK, you saw I put a discussion up there about parent themes and child themes. That is something that actually was a big deal in the WordPress space. And the mindset there is that if I'm a product person and I ship a theme that works great with Astro and EmDash, I want folks to be able to customize things without messing up the core theme files and things like that. That's something that's been a big aspect of WordPress for a long time, but that might not be the way forward when it comes to a theme marketplace and EmDash. Any details you can provide for our audience about like what opportunities there are for products on EmDash?
Yeah, I mean, themes are certainly challenging. It's early days, but as you'll understand from the architecture, Astro works very differently, EmDash works very differently. So the idea of a theme in kind of Astro parlance is really just a site in its own right. And you'll have seen from some of the examples that we produced, right? We have 3 entirely different sites that the only commonality is that they all import the same API in order to bring their posts and pages in. And they have this EmDash plugin in order for the administration interface to exist. So I think there's a huge opportunity for folks to work on, what has been a kind of large, Astro community that are building themes for Astro, to think about, okay, what does a theme for EmDash look like? What does a site for EmDash look like? In terms of like customization, I think, Matt, you can obviously speak a bit more to this as well. Like there's possibly opportunities where the site itself could expose things that could be changed in the administration panel. But I think we're a very long way from something like an Elementor or like, full site editing. The direction that kind of WordPress is going, I think, is quite counter to not only kind of like where EmDash architecturally is kind of at this point in time, but also possibly where the internet is going at this point in time, with the ability for you to kind of conjure up a site or modify a site just by talking to an AI agent, right? Rather than you having to go through multiple panels and drag options around and things like that. It certainly seems to me that as time goes on, that kind of stuff is just going to get easier and easier and easier and cheaper. And really the differentiating factor at that point is this kind of like system in the back. And how does that work?
And what about the plugin marketplace? Is there a monetization aspect that's being considered at all? Like, again, of course, we know you're version 0.1. So, but any kinds of thoughts and ideas about where that's heading overall?
We've definitely had some folks talk to us and kind of reach out, and they're commercial entities and they're interested in kind of being first to EmDash and showing that they can produce something. We have the most common and obvious example of this kind of email providers, right? So if you want to send an email with EmDash, you're going to need an email provider, and some email providers have already stepped up and said, here is a extension that allows you to do that. And the result of that, right, is you'll need an API key from that email provider, and if you go over whatever their free allocation is, you'll be spending money with them. So that's a benefit, I think, from that perspective. I think the other angle of like EmDash being MIT licensed, and that effectively meaning that the plugins can be licensed in a different way as well, possibly opens up that market a bit more. But really interested to see how that evolves further as time goes on.
Yeah, but we would very much like people to be able to build businesses on top of EmDash. The MIT licensing thing is one of those parts of it, and I know that I'm an old school open source advocate. I've been building open source things for nearly 30 years now, but I know that the GPL causes issues for a lot of people, particularly people who are trying to sell themes and plugins, and it's obviously a great bone of contention in there, but we were very keen that we wanted to use the MIT license to give people more flexibility about how they are publishing these things. And our existing marketplace doesn't have built-in support for monetization, but we would love people to be able to do that. This is something that we love the way that, that people have built these businesses on top of it. And I think that we would like to be able to give people the kind of flexibility that, say, a Shopify marketplace is able to give. But equally, from the marketplace perspective, we aren't wanting to be competing with the hosting platforms. So we're not planning to be a managed hosting provider either. What we are doing is we want to provide you the tools so that you can do that. And absolutely amazily, somebody has already launched a hosting platform for EmDash this week using the tools that we provided. And that's that's the perfect thing that we want. That is what we want to do about this. Because Cloudflare that's not our business. We don't do managed hosting. We provide the infrastructure for most of the managed hosts out there. So most of the WordPress hosts that are using Cloudflare in some form. So this is where we see ourselves fitting within this ecosystem, is providing the tools for everybody else who wants to build a business and make lots of money and build some amazing sites on it.
And can you talk? I know we're at time, but I'm sure this question has come up a lot. Can you speak to Cloudflare's commitment to EmDash? Because WordPress has been around for 20 years, and I know that people are concerned about if this is a fad or something internally at Cloudflare.
I think if you asked us, sorry, if you
Matt
asked
has
us,
absolutely no Q2 exactly this.
If you'd asked us 2 weeks ago, we would have said, we're going to see how it goes. We want to see what's going on before my Q2 roadmap has been question mark. Obviously the response has been incredible. We have blown away every possible expectation that I could have had from this. So there is clearly a massive demand for that. And that has not gone unnoticed internally. So basically at the moment, the answer is we're trying to work out how, but the clear point is that this is something that a lot of people want to be using. So we would be crazy to not be resourcing this. So, at the moment we have got a sort of semi roadmap for the way that we're going to be building this over the next 6 to 12 months. But it's not, at the moment, all we can say is, yes, people want to build with this, and we want to help people build with it as well. But equally, we want to see how we can build this community as well to make it something that, lots of WordPress developers and Astro developers and, any other web developers or somebody who's just downloaded Claude and is trying it out, are I going to be able to build things for? Because I think it's a golden age of web development at the moment, and this is I want this to be the CMS that people are using.
Yeah,
That's excellent.
This has gone spectacularly well for us, and I think it would be crazy if we don't spend a lot more time on it. And there's a lot of interest internally about how we make this a really big thing.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. We close every single episode out with our best advice, and I'd love to hear from you two. What is your best advice to plugin authors or theme authors out there who are considering EmDash? What would you tell them as a nutshell best advice? TK, you want to go first?
Come say hello. We're very, very approachable. We're on the Discord on a daily basis. Matt's, fainting as he files through hundreds of issues and pull requests. But we're really, really open. I think the community that we're building is fantastic. So I would love to see more people as a part of that. And I think a big thing that we're looking for now is people who want to build something a bit unique, a bit novel, and don't quite have the hooks and capabilities available for them from the system yet to build that as a sandbox plugin, and want to help us build those things. Because I think the more hooks that we have, the more clear it will be to other people. Oh, okay, this is how I put a plugin together. It is like a kind of app store in terms of the permission model, etc. It does make a lot more sense. I think that's really where we want to see people contributing.
Love it.
Yeah, my tip would be, you are in at the ground floor here. You have got the opportunity to shape the way that this forms, but you have also got the ability to build the great, blockbuster plugin for EmDash, because you are right there at the beginning. So do come in, try it out, tell us what you want from the plugin system and what you want from EmDash. And we are wanting to help you do this, because we're not wanting to compete with you. We want to, help you out.
That's excellent. Well, I appreciate both of your time a lot. Folks, if you are here, we're going to say goodbye to Matt and TK, and Zach and I might just chat a little bit. But again, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. And we will be in touch for sure.
Well, thanks for having us on your show.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
Absolutely. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Zach.
Matt. Cromwell.
Cromwell. What's your take? How was it?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it went from 0 to 1,000 miles per hour. And,
yeah.
That was really cool that it was interesting to hear that they hadn't necessarily planned for such a great response, but that they're also open to responding to it in kind and allocating more resources. Like,
yeah.
There have been a lot of criticisms about WordPress this, WordPress that. Isn't WordPress great? And yeah, WordPress is great. WordPress is the community. And I think a lot about the community is how you respond to feedback.
Yep.
And I was heartened to hear that they have an open door policy where you just go on Discord and talk about what you want and maybe actually get a PR merged into core. Like, that is something that I haven't tried merging anything in 10 years because it's a nightmare in WordPress. So, I think a lot of the energy that goes into plugins in WordPress might be going into core for EmDash. Like, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, obviously, their success is a big signal and does mean a lot of things. It's so funny that having had a lot of conversations with new plugin authors over the years, they often are like, oh, back in the day, you launched a plugin on .org and you had success because people could find you right away and adopt your plugin really quickly. And now it's not like that anymore. Well, geez, it absolutely is like that on EmDash right now. Like, it's absolutely like a bit of a gold rush moment. And that's what they were saying at the end there. Matt, in particular, Matt Kane was saying, like, where you could fill that spot. You could be the Yoast SEO of EmDash if you just get the plugin out there right now, which seems incredible potentially, of course.
And it comes down to execution. And if you want to know about execution, check out WP Product Talk. We talk a lot about how to make a product successful. But anybody can. I've burned 1 billion tokens, I think, on an EmDash plugin suite already.
Oh, wow.
That does, everything from Gravity Kit stuff like form displaying and like event management, membership stuff just to see what's going on. Our friend Jason with
Jason Coleman
with Paid Membership Pro has a Paid Membership Pro plugin already.
Yep.
Like it's not about the code, because the whole point of EmDash is anybody can make this code. It's about executing and launching and marketing and getting people to use it and pay for it. Like that's a really exciting blue sky opportunity.
100%.
How are you thinking about the execution on EmDash?
I mean, I think that WordPress is going to continue to be the website builder of choice for a lot of businesses and organizations. And I think EmDash right now looks like a really interesting alternative. I think their bullishness about their approach to their stack, their architecture, is interesting. And if they are right about that, then yeah, like things have to change with WordPress. But the thing is, like, WordPress is changing very rapidly in WordPress terms. Like our ability to adopt more AI forward things in WordPress core it's the fastest development I've ever seen in WordPress.
Yeah.
But it's half of the pace of everything that's happening in AI at the moment. Like we're going faster than ever, but it's still slow, basically. So how EmDash goes from v0.1 to version 1 is really going to be the real take, and how WordPress isn't like what Yo said in his article, isn't just AI compatible, but becomes AI native. If WordPress can become AI native, I don't even know. I'm not sure. But how WordPress adopts AI and how EmDash goes to V1, those are the big tests for me. And I think that once both of those things are fully realized, you're going to see it's really kind of like an apples and oranges situation, not a apples and anvils situation. I don't know if that makes sense. I use that analogy a lot. They're more similar. They're not more different.
Yeah, like one of the things that Matt was saying was that he wanted to have a concept of security that is more like a mobile phone app, and the permission structure of mobile phones are really limiting, and there's a reason that people still use desktop computers for a lot of things.
Yeah, true.
And there are so many things you can't do on a phone that are really frustrating.
Yeah.
That people use a desktop computer for. And another thing about that is when you use an application on your phone, it progressively asks you, can I access your specific contact list now after you've onboarded? Maybe now you need contact access. Maybe now you need... So like, I'm sure this will get worked out. But that one of the things that came up for me is like, well, he said where you need access, but not when you need access. And I think like that kind of flexibility is going to be needed to be worked out.
Yeah, that's interesting because you bring up what Matt Mullenweg has mentioned several times, that he wants WordPress to be the operating system of the web.
Right.
If they're the mobile apps of the web, but WordPress is the operating system of the web, that's really interesting. And I mean, I could see it working that way. Again, if WordPress really adopts AI in a way that is meaningful and not just a tack on. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that Matt took 7.0 by the reins. I wish he had let them release 7.0. Well, anyway, my point, the AI...
You can say what you want to say, Zach.
No, there are... The AI being pushed into WordPress aggressively is the right move.
Yes.
And I think there needs to be more unilateral decision-making to make sure that WordPress keeps up. Because,
ironically, yes.
Yeah, and that requires moving quickly, making decisions, and maybe you get it wrong, but we could revert that later. But like WordPress's structure does not inherently mean that it's not good for AI. AI has trained on WordPress for years. It's just that there's a lot of new code that needs to be better documented, and the focus needs to be on making AI a better experience, making WordPress a better experience for AI. And I think EmDash is going to kick WordPress in the pants and get us really focused on how to improve. And I'm excited about that.
I wanted to see, we had a lot of comments that we didn't pay attention to at all. I wanted to see if we might highlight a couple. Here's one from a user that BGreenAZ. Is Cloudflare serious about putting in the work resources to maintain EmDash in a viable open source platform? What plans do you have to foster sustained community after initial buzz subsides? That's the question you asked at the end.
And I was really glad that they are addressing. I was also really glad to hear that Matthew Prince was the person who, it was top down.
Oh yeah, 100%. I love that they led with that. We were both curious about that.
I also wanted to dive into that a bit more, and like he said, do WordPress, but better.
Be the next WordPress. Yeah,
and that means a lot of different things. I wonder if he said that what the exact words were.
I feel like it had to have been those exact words. How can you be the next WordPress?
Yeah, and then as a developer, Matt kind of seemed to have parsed that into the data structures and stuff, and the community angles. There are so many different things that make up WordPress, and that was a lot of the feedback that we've been hearing after the release is like, well, WordPress is this, WordPress is that. They didn't think about this. Seems like they're open to hearing and thinking and considering and moving forward. Like, it doesn't seem like it's flash in the pan. It seems like they're willing to put in the infrastructure.
It was interesting that they made it a big giant question mark in the beginning. They were like, well, maybe nobody cares. Like, maybe we launched this.
EmDash.
But clearly it's
Q2. Who knows? Huh?
Yeah. Ian Meisner is our co-host on WP Product Talk. He's in the comments. He says, why will EmDash succeed at adding more to core while building and maintaining a healthy ecosystem where WordPress may have not? I don't know if that got addressed directly at all, but it's a good question overall.
I think the bureaucracy of maintaining open source hasn't hit them yet, which is and not just open source, but like AI generated PRs, the management of the PRs, and it sounds like they're about to scale up a lot. And I think that the attitude that we are at 0.1.0, like they can make choices right now that WordPress simply cannot, because it's the Microsoft Windows of open source, where you have to maintain infinite backward compatibility, because that's the ethos. You can't break anything.
Which I love that ethos personally. I still think it's a strength, but you're right. It's also a huge burden.
A strength to what point? Like
to what extent? Yes. I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
But Katie is also a co-host, and she's in the comments here. She says, personally, I'd rather wait until we know it will have a decent number of users, which I think she's saying that in the context of talking about, whether she would make any of her products compatible with EmDash or not. And that's 100% a valid perspective. Why should we be jumping over there if nobody's going to be using it? But like they said, you might miss the gold rush, honestly, because there might be 25 different document library pros that get created between now and when you finally feel like there's an opportunity there. One more from Ian. Does a big host offer managed EmDash in the next 2 years? They already said it. They mentioned it. They said that, I don't know if it's a big host, but somebody already launched an EmDash related hosting platform, which I'm not surprised at all. But I did think that their comments about the lock-in was really interesting. It definitely has a lot more potential for application when you can host your whole setup in lots of different environments. I will say, though, that right now, getting set up with a node hosting environment is a lot more challenging than a WordPress hosting environment. It's not for the faint of heart. It's definitely very developer-centric, which is why I think a managed hosting environment for EmDash makes the most sense, because that's the only way you're going to get it in front of the masses. You're not going to have folks installing their own node setup on a server.
And honestly, I've been developing with EmDash locally and playing around with it, and developing without their plugin sandbox has been fine. I've built all the plugins that I talked about. Those were just developed locally, and they work perfectly with the local environment. So the lack of a sandbox just means there's a little less security or something. So I think coming from WordPress, that's not a real problem.
Yeah. I played with it too. I posted last week a walkthrough of me trying to export my personal website from WordPress into EmDash locally. And I had already experienced Astro before. and I felt like the CMS was just getting in the way. Like I just was like, I would much rather. I liked the importer. The importer was helpful and useful. It got everything set up locally, and then I have everything there. But then I just could go to town with Cursor and Astro, and I didn't need the CMS at all. But Nick actually commented, this guy Nick, who I don't remember his name, our friend Nick.
Diego?
I don't know. Who I give him a hard time every time I see him. That I don't know who he is. And you're not helping me.
I'm
no.
sorry, I'm blanking.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Nick was like, "But is that because it's just a solo website?" And if you had a team of people working on the content, you would need the CMS more. And I was like, maybe, potentially.
Well, I think that the release of EmDash with such a basic UI signals to me that they don't intend the UI to be the primary way of interacting with it. And they said something to that extent, to that effect on the call, and I think they anticipated being AI first, and that means instead of somebody logging into the CMS, maybe it is just AI talking with your Claude or like your AI provider. Like the editor experience, not great, but the data structure really good. So like I do think that the focus for them on the engineering side of things signals what their attitude is toward like how that they aren't as concerned about people logging in. Maybe it's just a headless experience to use WordPress.
Maybe, yeah. It was interesting too that Scott Buscemi put in a PR to add Gutenberg into EmDash. I thought that was really funny.
And it was rejected because of the license.
Because of the license, exactly. They're like, the GPL is often called a viral license. As soon as it's in a project, it infects the rest of the whole project. And that's by design and by intention. And that's why Matt Mullenweg likes it so much. He's like, it is the licensing that forces open source to continue to be open source. But it is a perspective and it is an opinion of free code. And clearly they are a lot more comfortable with the MIT approach instead, which is another perspective, another opinion, and it's valid. So,
and I've got to say, the WordPress world, like at GravityKit, we've just in the past 2 days built MCPs to better interact with the block editor at a per block basis. WordPress VIP has a plugin that allows structuring data in JSON format, not in the stupid HTML format that the block editor saves things in. That's easier for AIs to parse. You can use like Python and JQ. Like it makes it a lot easier to interact with the data when it's not in HTML comments. And I think WordPress is moving faster than ever before, like you were saying, to make it something that is usable by AI. So I don't think WordPress is at an AI disadvantage, personally. I think it's at a speed disadvantage. I think there is a structural question.
Yeah, but you can't just be in Claude or Cursor and say, post this article for me to my website. You can't do that right now, but you can do that with Astro.
We absolutely do that.
I mean, you can, but it's not in core that way currently.
But for EmDash is all about developer experience, right? And for developers who are working with WordPress, it's pretty darn straightforward to make it so that your MCP can.
Yeah, you also can't just say, redesign my homepage to be this way.
Well, you can't. It will look like trash.
Yeah, you can. You can't do it effectively. You can try, but that's what I mean though. With Astro, you can do all those things really easily, really quickly, and it's because the architecture is set up in a way that AI looks at it and is like, "Oh, I get exactly what's going on here," and can make all the changes happen automatically.
So why not headless WordPress with an Astro theme?
I've seen folks say that that's what they're doing instead. It's basically using WordPress as the CMS and not the front end. And I think it makes more and more sense that way. But it makes the power of WordPress, very much minimized. Is it really just a content database? Is that really all it is? And then it's like, if you're going to do that, there's way leaner ways to have a content database than to use all of WordPress for that.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, for GravityKit, we are centering everything back into WordPress. Like Fluent CRM is what we're using for our marketing now. Obviously Gravity Forms, a lot of a lot of our decisions have been to put everything into one database.
Nick, here's Nick, our friend Nick. Who
Hi,
I don't,
Nick.
I don't know this guy. I don't know him at all.
Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, Nick is the one who was telling me because I'm solo. Make me lonely, Nick. That's why I don't know you. Anyway, Nick McLaughlin, good guy. Thanks for being here, Nick. Any other last comments? Best advice?
What's your best advice, man?
Oh, man, my best advice is to pay freaking attention, folks, because it's all going so fast, and there's so many things happening all the time, and it's not just noise. It's so many really hyper interesting things. I mean, there's a ton of noise too, which is difficult and challenging. But the way things are changing nowadays in WordPress, outside of WordPress, it's all relevant. And if you're not paying attention, you really do start to miss out really quickly. Because it also, all these changes bring about new opportunity as well. And being an early adopter, it has its benefits and strengths. The only way you can do that is if you're paying attention and are agile enough to be able to adjust on the fly. So not that I'm saying that I'm the best at any of those things, but it makes me tired how much I'm having to pay attention and how much I have to feel like I'm adjusting all the time to the newest stuff that's available to us nowadays.
Yeah, I think Yoast with the WordPress -SEO slug on the plugin directory, that I don't think that was in the directory for like 6 years or something. Yoast didn't launch immediately. That I think there is time for us to wait and see. That's not what I'm suggesting anybody do, but I also I feel such panic when things like this launch, and then I realize okay, it's not first mover, it's best mover. Apple's didn't create the first smartphone, it created the best smartphone, and then changed the industry after that. So
yeah, but they are way behind on AI right now, and I'm not sure that they're gonna get up with the game, honestly.
Yeah, and it might have been the best move. They've not had to spend $100 billion.
True.
They can just license from Google and have all the benefits without any of the costs. So
potentially.
So first mover advantage, maybe not. But I do think my best advice is it comes down to fundamentals. And if you believe you have what it takes to ship and deliver and really iterate and focus and market and have the connections, and they were talking to hosting providers and big players in the email marketing. It might be about connections right now and trying to affect influence. If you have the fundamentals, do it. Give it a go. But if not, you're okay to wait. That's my feeling.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, folks, we were actually on a break because of PressConf. We squeezed this one in, as you could tell, for really good reasons. We're on a break next week as well. And then we're coming back with some more great content with more product owners. I'm looking forward to next season for sure.
Hey, and if you're watching, do us a favor and hit like and subscribe. It helps the show. And also thanks to Freemius for being our global sponsor for WP Product Talk. Freemius helps you ship the...
we don't have the notes in front of us.
I'll tell you.
They're a merchant of record.
They're a merchant of record. They do all the stuff that plugin owners need you to do, including tax compliance for global tax compliance, distributing software. They do all this stuff that's hard for about selling products, and they make it easy. So,
and they even work with SaaS applications, not only WordPress folks. So if you're thinking about EmDash stuff, Freemius is still in the cards, honestly.
And maybe Freemius should talk to EmDash and see if they could be
opportunity.
Knock over.
All right, folks. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.